Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Was it something I said? Ladies and gentlemen of the chamber, today is Budget Day. It is also the day of the Kentucky Derby, as evidenced by the hat being worn by Representative Roberta Willis. You look terrific. But I say that to make somewhat of a point, because in our minds, in our world as state representatives and in the community we call the Capitol Complex, today is Budget Day. It has a meaning. And probably on our way up here or during the course of the week when we saw family or friends or constituents, we said we'll probably be doing the budget on Saturday. And I think it's very important, you know, we get caught up certainly at the end of a session, and we sort of think everyone's either aware of what's going on up here, but it's important that we put ourselves in the places of the people who put us here. What does Budget Day mean to them? Oh, they listen with interest. I'm sure they're proud of their state reps and state senators when they come up and say we have a big day today. We're going to be voting on the budget. And I'm sure they wish us, I know they do me, good luck. Hope the day goes well. I feel sorry for the hard work you guys are doing. I understand you've been in session late, et cetera, et cetera. And then they walk away and they go about their lives. They go shopping or to doctor's appointments or run errands or take their kids to the park or sit home and kick back on a Barker lounger and watch the Kentucky Derby. And they do that in this wonderful country and in this wonderful state with a sense of calm, because you see, in a democratic representative government like the United States of America and the state of Connecticut, they made their choice at the polls for the people who are going to come up here and represent them and do a whole host of things, including passing a budget. But sometimes what a budget means to them is different than what it actually means to us. If you were to look in Webster's dictionary and define what is a budget, it says a plan used to decide the amount of money that could be spent and how it will be spent. That is the Webster's definition of what a budget is. And if we were to go back to our constituency and ask them about their budgets, whether it's their household budget, whether it's their business's budget, whether it's an organization they're a part of, their familiarity and notion of what a budget is pretty simple. It's actually one that I think we all were ingrained in as kids. The first thing you do when you set a budget is, how much money do I have? How much money do I have to spend? And with the knowledge of that in your head, whether it's based on donations, sales, income that you may earn, you then go about and decide how much you could spend based on that budget, what items you could buy. For instance, if I have a grocery budget of $50 a week, and I want to stick to that budget because that's all the money I have, people every day go out and they make choices. I have to buy a half gallon of milk. I need juice or eggs. I need cold cuts or produce. And they keep tabs on that budget when they walk into that store. We all do it. We've seen it. Maybe in some cases they have coupons because they're figuring those coupons into the budget that they buy. And they walk down those aisles of the grocery store and they see some tempting stuff. Funny Bones was big with me. Loved them. How about Ben & Jerry's Chocolate Heath Bar Crunch? Forget about it. Coffee Heath Bar. But sometimes, most times, people go, I can't get that because I can't afford it. We do it all the time. There's a lot of households that sit around during the course of the year and they maybe get their kids together and say, where would you like to go on vacation this year? Oh, I'm sure there's wonderful suggestions. Hawaii, Caribbean, let's go on a cruise. And mom or dad or somebody says, we'd love to, honey, but we just can't afford to do that. About a week ago, there's a whole bunch of people in this state and around this country that have to make their decisions on what colleges they go to. They applied to a whole bunch and they get accepted. They have to make that decision. And a lot of these young people, men and women, sit around with their dads and moms or both. And when they make that decision, they have to take into consideration their budget. Oh, maybe they always dreamed of going to Boston College instead of, say, a state school that cost far less. That's where they had their heart set on. But sometimes mom and dad has to say, sorry, we can't afford to send you there. All over the state, every day, people are making those kind of decisions. Maybe your car broke down and you need to buy a new one. And when you walk into that dealership, you say, I have X amount to spend on a new car. And that salesperson might say, I want to show you various models, and this has GPS, and this has 18-inch steel alloy, whatever the heck, tires, and this has this gizmo, and heated seats, etc. And you say, God, I would love that, but I just can't afford it. I can only afford so much. Each and every one of us, ironically, those who participate in the Citizens Election Plan, we do that same thing every year or every other year. For the state house races, we raise $5,000 and we get approximately another $25,000, and we have a campaign budget of $30,000. And with that, we have to make choices because, you see, we can't go over the budget. Oh, we might decide to buy bumper stickers or buttons or lawn signs. We might decide to take a radio ad or a TV ad out or a newspaper ad. We might decide to do direct mail. But it all has to fall within that $30,000 budget. We might say to ourselves when we sit around with our campaign advisors, boy, wouldn't it be great if we could do this wonderful cable ad and then back it up with a great radio commercial in drive time, followed up by a beautiful 3-color mailer. And somebody has to say, we can't afford to do that. That's a budget. That's what a budget is to all of us, except when it comes to the state budget. We do it a different way. When it comes to a state budget, we don't say, how much is it we have to spend? We say, what do we want to do? What do we want to spend it on? And believe me when I say this, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't say it mockingly, because think about it. We've all been involved in this process. You start with a seed of an idea. Wouldn't it be nice if we could help somebody? Wouldn't it be nice if we could have a program that helped this needy person or that needy person? Wouldn't it be nice if we could do this for education or this for a school system? And we say, yes, that's great in a vacuum. Of course, those are noble ideas. But they cost money. So unlike my example of the household, of the car purchase, of the vacation, of even our own campaign budgets, we don't say, how much is it we could spend and figure out what to do within that. We say we want to do A and B and C and D, all good things. And then we say, now we got to come up with a number that matches what we're spending. That's the way we do it, folks. Let's be honest. That's the way we do it. If you think about it, the complete opposite way that everybody else does it. And that's why when we left this morning or last week and said to our constituents, Saturday we're doing the budget, they had a different notion in their head. And when you put yourself in a position where you spend the money first in preparing your budget and have to make the amount you get to pay for it balance, you're backing into it, and sometimes you get in trouble. And ladies and gentlemen, we have gotten in trouble every single year. What do I mean by that? For years, we do these things called lapses. What's a lapse? A lapse is I kind of hope, we're going to save that kind of money. So if in a particular line item there's $50,000 and I have a $5,000 lapse, what that means is during the course of the year, I bet you by golly we'll find $5,000 to save. I don't know where, I don't know when, I don't know how, but we're going to do it. So we put it down in the budget because the $50,000 then gets minused by $5,000 and it's only $45,000, and that makes it fit into this budget. The other thing we do is say, this balance, but I always have to laugh. People go, and we passed a balanced budget. No kidding, we have to. It's in the Constitution. So we're going to make it balanced no matter what we got to do. I talked about lapses as one of those things that we have to do. Here's another one. And this is the other thing that our constituents back home, they don't get. Because you see, when they talk about what college budget they have to work with or what car budget they have to work with, nobody says to them, well, you know, you have an off-budget account you could take from. They don't got that. They only got the money they get. And that's how they act. But not here. We have off-budget accounts. And what that means is, this requirement that you need to balance a budget, you could honor that requirement, wink, wink, because you could take money from another thing that doesn't count on that piece of paper. These funds. And if you were to tell that to the guy or person at home, they're like, what the heck are you talking about? That's not my understanding of a budget. That's not Webster's dictionary definition of a budget. And then here's the other thing we do that might sound somewhat disingenuous to the folks at home who aren't familiar with the way we conduct business here. We often, all of us as politicians who want to get down to the bottom of things, we'll say, you know, we have a crisis with regard to, say, transportation. And we are going to focus like a laser beam. How many times have you heard that one? On this issue of transportation. So much so that we're going to set up special account. We call it a special transportation account. And all the money that we get from certain things, we're putting in that little account. That's how important the issue of transportation is. So all of you, when you pay that extra buck at the gas tank, when you pay gross receipts tax, when you pay certain taxes, don't fear, I know no one likes to pay taxes, but it's all going into this special little account. And with that, we're going to directly address the problem. Well, people say, well, I don't like to pay taxes, but gee, that sounds like a good plan. And then all of a sudden, when it comes to budget day, we go into that very account that we said we were setting aside for that special project, and we take money from it to make the whole budget balance. And picture explaining that to people at home. Good, honest, intelligent people. Like, wait, I don't get that. That doesn't seem right. Oh, we do it all the time. You remember back in the early 70s when we started Lotto, or the lottery? That money was going to education. That was our lockbox. We earn money this way, but folks, have no fear. It's going directly to education. Are you kidding me? When did we start? We stopped that decades ago. I've been here long enough to remember the Mashantucket Pequot Fund. We're making a pact with the Indian tribes with regard to gambling. But we're doing it because we're going to get money that's going to go directly back to the municipalities. We're going to take that money, we're going to put it in a special account, and we're going to give it back to the municipalities. Does it exist? Not really. Do we give all the money back? Sort of not. Where does the rest go? To balance the budget. Just 3 years ago, 3 years ago, the governor and this legislature raised the sales tax. It was 6%. We went to 6.35%. And we said, not to fear, a portion of that raise is going to go into a special account. And that special account, called the Municipal Revenue Sharing Account, is going to go back to the municipality. We are going to solve your property tax problems. Folks, we didn't keep that promise either. When you go back and to the people at home, they go, well, that doesn't sound right. That's not the way I do my budget. Today, or in the last 2 days, we discovered something. We discovered that the comptroller's office, sort of in charge of all those pension things and retirement things, said, folks, I'm telling you right now, you better build into your budget $51 million because we're going to need to spend that money to pay the pensions and health care of retired correction officers. So I'm just telling you now, said the comptroller, you need to put that money in your budget because you have an obligation to balance it. So we, in doing our budget, go, uh-oh, we don't have the money. We don't have the money. So what do? In the budget that's before us, we just don't put it in. We ignore it. It doesn't exist. We'll figure it out when it happens. But we have a balanced budget, a responsible, balanced budget. People back home, well, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense at all. Just about 3 hours ago, folks, 3 hours ago, we adjourned to take up revenue estimates, which are going to be presented in about the next 20 minutes. These are the revenue estimates that we tell the world we are basing our budget number, our spending plan on. And to the shock and surprise, I will guess, of 95% of the people in this room and in the Senate, we came across $75 million new dollars to help us balance. And somebody said, great, where did it come from? Humana. It's revenue. From where? Keno? No. Do we have a toll or something that's bringing this money in? No. Well, then how could we budget $75 million if we don't know where it's coming from? No one heard of this. And the answer was, we believe that we could count on $75 million of revenue to balance this budget that we will get from people who don't pay their taxes. Now you try to figure that one out. We're going to rely to the tune of $75 million to balance a budget based on the fact that we're going to get people who by definition don't pay their taxes to pay their taxes. If you tell that story at home, people scratch their heads. They don't get it. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason we do those things is to satisfy our constitutional requirement that we balance a budget. In order for us to pay for those programs. And here's the tough part. Here's the part that is so understandable, yet unforgivable. The understandable part is that all of these dollars, for the most part, are going for good programs. God willing, they're helping people who need our help. And we would love to do as much as we can. For those of us who are parents, when your kids say to you, Daddy, I'd like this, or can we do this? In your heart, you want to say, of course we can. But sometimes you got to say, I'm sorry, sweetheart. Mommy and Daddy can't afford to do that. I have to say no. It's not easy. It breaks your heart. But we have to do that, because what they don't understand is if Mommy and Daddy did it when they didn't have the dough, if they borrowed from it, if they got it from some other source and had to pay it back, it puts the entire family and their future in jeopardy. So that when the bigger things come down the road, the talk about what college are we going to go to, or the fact we don't have a car, it broke down and we need to be able to get to work, we're even in bigger trouble. And that destroys a family. The same analogy to the state. We want to be able to say, we did this, we did that, we helped this one, we helped that one. But sometimes, folks, we got to say, I'm sorry, we can't afford it. The good chairman of the Appropriations Committee talked about priorities. That's what we're supposed to do. When we understand what we could reasonably receive in revenue, we must prioritize, because we all know that our desires and needs far exceed the money we know we're going to get in. So I'm not casting aspersions as to why we spend the money. We spend the money because we're human beings and we want to help other people. It's our desire, it's our natural instinct to help. But sometimes, as I've said often from this very desk over 22 years, when you help some people, you hurt others. And that's what we've done in this state. Just the other day, we got revenue estimates, ladies and gentlemen. We were flying high for 6 months. We're going to have $500 million in surplus, so we called it. Surplus. It would lead those people we represent back home say, wow, surplus means good. We must be on the road to recovery. And yet we know by every measurement that in the out years, those very important out years, I might say, we're facing humongous billion-plus-dollar deficits. What does that mean? Just like my analogy with the kid saying, okay, hon, let's give the kid what they want even though we got to borrow. It's going to hurt down the road. Because down the road we're going to have to say, us folks, sorry, we ran out of dough and we want to continue these good things we gave you, so we're going to have to raise your taxes again. Now, some people think that's less problematic than others. But when you look at the big picture in this state, we ain't doing so good. And if the revenue picture of a couple of days ago, where we lost almost $500 million and we all had to go back to the drawing board to cut another $300 million, isn't proof enough, go back home. Ask the guy who's been out of work for God knows how long. Look at the statistics that say we got about 25,000 less people working today than 3.5 years ago. Read the poll that just came out that said 50% of the people that live in this beautiful, glorious state want to get the heck out. Look at the non-partisan poll that said Connecticut is the least attractive place to retire in. Folks, this is our state. And we're seeing that happen. Because for our kindness today, we're killing ourselves tomorrow. I analogize it to a house. A house is built on a foundation. If the foundation is built incorrectly or faultily, the house upon which it stands will crumble. It will crumble. It might look nice for that initial snapshot, but if the foundation is not right, it will crumble. And the age-old debate between Republicans and Democrats is, how do you build that foundation to build that house upon? We believe on this side of the aisle that you build a different foundation. And therefore you will have a different house. We believe on this side of the aisle, as we'll demonstrate with our budget amendment, that if you build that foundation right, correctly, on solid ground, then your house will stand strong. And you won't have to come back year after year to bolster it up or patch it up or fix the crumbles. That's why there's a difference between the parties, a different ideology. It doesn't mean that you folks are bad people, you're wonderful people. It doesn't mean that we're bad people, we're wonderful people. But we have a different vision. And that vision is very clearly demonstrated on a day like today, because we each have different foundations upon which we build that house. And obviously both of us are going to say our house is better than your house, because our foundation is better than your foundation. But just look at the house right now, folks. Look at the house. You know, 3 years ago we increased taxes by $3.5 million. And we thought that was the strength of the house that we needed. That it would keep that house strong and standing for years to come. It didn't, did it? It didn't, did it? In fact, that house is so faulty that by virtue of a meeting in an afternoon, we saw a surplus called $500 million dwindle down to 42. That's how fragile it is because of that foundation. I want to make another analogy, ladies and gentlemen, with regard to the house that, in my opinion, tells the story of this budget. You know, when you prepare a house for sale, you have a couple of dates in mind. You have the date of the open house, and you have the date of the sale. And anybody who knows anything about real estate, or has bought or sold a house, or watches House Hunters on HGTV, knows that a lot of effort is put into making that house sellable. To making that house sellable. And a lot of us, all being in politics, we consider that the sale day is election day, and the campaign season is the open house. So how do you market that house? How do you market that house? I'm an attorney by profession. I had a case once where my clients bought this beautiful home, and they had an inspection done, and the house, as far as everything seen to the eye, the structural and mechanical components, was perfect. And they bought the house. Within a month, the septic system crashed. The wiring, which was hidden behind the walls, was discovered to be faulty and had to be ripped out. The house that had a freshly painted basement turned out to be leaking. You see, it was all for show. But those homeowners had an option. They could sue and get back some of their money and be restored to whole. And they did, and they won. But they don't have that option when it comes to a budget and the building of our house. You see, on this day, we all bring out our respective budgets, and that's sale day. That's the open house. Look at the house we have. Beautiful, brand spanking new. Just renovated. No water problems. Look at the new shutters. Look at the new Thermopane with double hung windows. Look at the granite countertops. Come on in. Kick the tires. Isn't it nice? After the open house, somebody put a bid on. Things start falling apart a little bit. There's a leak in the ceiling. We better patch that up and patch it quick. Paint over it. Put a little duct tape on it. Oh my God, there's water in the basement. Paint it gray. Say that we just freshly painted it. Make it look good. till sale day, and then let's get the hell out of here. That's what we do. We're putting Band-Aids and duct tape and painting that basement floor so it doesn't look like it has a water leak. Ladies and gentlemen, it has a water leak. We have water in our basement and our roof is leaking. And if we're honest people, and I believe we are, we have to tell that to the people of the state of Connecticut. And we have to fix the roof and plug the leak in the basement. And the budget that is before us now does not do that. Because the budget that's before us now is a house built on a faulty foundation. And unless and until we change that foundation, that house will crumble. And I know you all too well to know you don't want the house to crumble. You don't want the house to crumble. This is our opportunity to fix the foundation. The budget that before us does not do that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, sir.